Hi everyone. Firstly, I know I made a short video about uploading this video last week and I ended up not doing that. And for that, I am sorry. So we live and we learn, and let's get on with the video. The other day, I came to a realization that when you have OCs, they are pretty much your children.
Oh
They're your
my.
kids. So, come meet my children. So we are starting off with the formidable, the most commanding character I have, Amalia Lucy Bonetta. And I want to first start off with her personality and her traits. And luckily, I got a bit more insight with how to format this from like other artists on YouTube. I'm probably going to put their links in the description as well for you guys to check it out, because that really gave me a bit more depth. So let's get started. So with Amalia's personality, I would say, first off, let's just say how old she is. For the time period in which this takes in, the present time for this plot line, let's say, is the early 2000s. So between 2006 2008 is when her present time is. But she's actually born in the year 1795. Yep, she is old as hell. And with that, with age comes wisdom and just a profound way of understanding life. And with her traumas and everything, I don't want to so heavily focus on the traumas, but of how her traits apply to the storyline. So I would say her character is very morally conflicted when it comes to understanding strengths and weaknesses. So she doesn't particularly agree with the idea of the saying of, how the many outweigh the sum. She is willing to sacrifice a group of people for one individual, especially if that one individual holds such a large part of her heart or is such a profound person in her life. So I think that's where the whole confliction of life or death, and her being such of a more citizen of age. She is around, I can't even do the math now. My goodness. She's probably around like 200 years old. Let's say that. And I didn't want to make her character to be like cold and stoic. I wanted it to be more the fact that she's emotionally avoidant. She feels so much to the point she doesn't know what to do. So that causes her to do things the wrong way in the sense of morals. She thinks she has a very high moral ground when in fact, although you think you're doing good, in the end you're actually causing more problems for the people around you. And she does try to self-reflect, but at the end of the day, let's say around this time period, technically in age she is around 19 to 20 years old mentally, I would say, but she is physically, and how the essence of time works is she is 200. So rather than confronting her emotions of grief and anger and just directly dealing with how she's emotionally avoidant, she chooses to distract herself with so many things around her. And as you can see with the drawing that I'm doing in the speed paint, it was just a character sheet I worked on a while back. She has a pet crow. I was actually depending on using either a crow or a raven. I wanted something that was symbolic, but also something that I know I could draw. I'm willing to draw things that I'm not comfortable with as well, but something that I knew would gravitate to the idea of her story and the storytelling. So coming to you live, just to make sure if you were paying attention, here's a pop quiz. If you chose C, you are correct. And if you chose D, we have a problem. Getting back into the lore, so Amalia is a necromancer, but there is a lot of cultural and lineage significance to what she is and why she is what she is. So her family, half her family on her mother's side, they practice opia. So I got the terminology and the idea of this due to my culture. So my family is from Antigua, and I wanted to add some similarities and things that I could connect to. No one in my family practices this, but we do speak about it. And the cultural significance is due to the colonialism. And I thought it would play such a part in the storytelling of her family because her family is immigrants. And around this time period, it's 1795, and slavery is still a thing. So to make it be a profound, I keep saying the word profound, but to make it be such a significant role to the idea of who she is, Olbia is something that she didn't fully practice or fully have a grasp on. It was actually her mother. So her mother was a herbalist, and with her doing herbalism, she helped people, she helped sick people, she helped mostly the women in her community, as well as secretively the upper class as well. And with that, there came such a detrimental thing to her safety as well, because the mom, she's putting herself and as well as Amalia at risk when doing this. But as you can see, this created such a connection to her culture, and I would say this card started a fascination for myself to take a deeper dive. But I'm not gonna give you guys the full backstory. So Amalia's mother, I want to say that due to the fact it's during times of enslavement, you're probably trying to figure out how did Amalia get to this place. And so her mom is from Haiti, and her father is actually a British man. He is a white British man, and I don't want to say it's like due to love or due to like being young and in love, because her mother was young at the time and so was the father, but they come from two separate classes of life. And with that, they both knew they couldn't be together. They both already had an understanding of that. But then her mother did get pregnant with her, and the mother raised her up until the age of 12. Then up to that point, the mom got sick, and you would assume that she would stay with the family, but she didn't. I'm actually trying to try to tie the ideas of how the mom would let Amalia end up with the father, and how that the family didn't particularly raise her again or continuously even after the mom passed. I'm just trying to have to figure out how to tie that together, because I was so heavy on like character design at one point, and after watching so many people, honestly, YouTube created such a vast way of me trying to understand more about character designing as well as storytelling. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But with the plot and everything of the characters, let's say for now it's pretty open-ended when it comes to that, but let's jump forward to when Amalia's a bit older now. She ends up being taken in by her father, but her father does not recognize her as his child publicly. I know, more trauma, but I thought it would play nicely into the idea of the fact that it is 1795. He's not taking ownership of anything or responsibility, but he takes responsibility of the fact that she does exist. So she is seen as more of a like being taken under his wing, like he's a guest of the family, but she's not recognized even fully as human, which is really unfortunate, even though it is my writing. So with her character, at a very young age, she already knows how classism is. Like, as a child, you have to come to the woes of how you were established in society. I would say especially around this time. I know children had somewhat of an understanding, especially if your parents. And with that, she knows, yeah, that's my father, but she can't call him dad or father or anything like that of that magnitude. So the stepmother she has, the things that she was also a child born out of wedlock. So she was pretty much taken in as the help. And that really created a lot of constraint for her and understanding why her life is this way. But the mom knew to her best ability that she could be taken care of as well as possible financially and to be safe. That's the one thing. She was the only child of her mom. So with that, continuing on, life goes on. She comes into like a rhythm of how she's seen in this family. She could be around them and not be an issue. I would say the stepmother, I know some people may be like, oh, why don't you make the dynamic kind of be like the Cinderella? I didn't really want to give her that plot line. I would say that the stepmother did have some passive aggressiveness towards her, but I wouldn't want it to be some form of violence or anything like that. I would say it's emotionally passive aggressive, and it was more of how she caused a disturbance just by existing. And Amalia actually has a little sister, half sister, and her name is Sephora. And with that, Sephora is very, daddy's little girl, and she's loved by everyone. And she is somewhat oblivious to not the idea of slavery, but more of the idea of the classism. Like, she knows her family has money. She knows her family is wealthy. She knows that she could have things no matter what effort she puts in. And she knows the fact that she has a half-sister. But the mother wants her to realize you need to marry well. You need to do this and you need to do that. But nothing too heavy. Because she's kind of, I don't want to say an airhead, because she's a lot like her mother in a way. Like, she's aware of what she stands in life and how she stands in life. So I give her that. I would say, though, with their sisterly dynamic, the emphasis on dynamic and not sisterly, there is a tone, an undertone of them knowing where they stand. So it's like they know that they're related. And there is some form of, like, I would say semi-friendship with them, because at the end of the day, they were children when they met. And that the mother didn't really do anything to cause any, like, constraint between that. Because she was like, oh, it's nice to have, like, a little friend. You know how when we're kids and your parents would use the tone of, like, oh, you and your little friend? That is some form of passive aggression. I hope we're all aware of that. The idea of it being said that way. There is, like, a mean undertone to that, and kind of cruel in a way, because it's the lack of seriousness to what that person means in your life, or the understanding that your parents probably don't see them as a good enough person to be friends with. So in a way, the mom, when they first met, even said, oh, well, be nice to have a little companion for you. I was like, oh, even I didn't like how the fact that I wrote that. I didn't like that at all. But moving on, I think there's many characters in this whole plot line, and it's a lot to have to figure out, especially trying to figure out how to place everyone, especially when you're trying to explain everything, even as I'm going on with this. It's pretty difficult in hindsight, I know where everything is chronologically. In my head, I know where everybody is, where everybody's placed, timeline-wise, but having to rearrange my ideas and talk it out loud. Like, I'm not even using a script right now to do this, because I know the fact I might, like, derail from it. And obviously I know it would be a lot more helpful is the fact that I spent so much time on the character designs, and that's on me. But within doing the character designs in the beginning, as you guys saw, I got a lot of referencing, and I made sure the referencing, I wouldn't say so heavily historically accurate, but more of accurate to what I wanted it to display, and the certain ideologies each character carries with them. And I would say, for my storyline, it is called Anatomy of Immortality. I know that's a mouthful, but it's honestly the scapuling and the dissecting of what it is for my characters to be immortal. And speaking of immortality, let's get into my other character, Dolores Catalina Kron. She is of Latin descent. She is my younger child, and she is my darling. I really love this character as well. I love all my characters. I think as I'm getting older, I'm putting a lot more depth and genuity to the characters, and I'm not going to draw something unless I'm for certain it makes sense to me to draw it. I know that probably comes with some constraints to actually, like, putting idea to paper, but I feel like for me, I need to have a plan in order to draw. But I do freehand a lot of things. I think with her drawing, I went through like three stages of how she's gonna look. I have like 3 prior of how she looked. I think I uploaded them at one point somewhere. I just don't remember where. I think probably on my Insta. as the title goes for the storyline, Anatomy of Immortality, both of these people are immortal creatures. They are of the supernatural, and they cross paths in the most heartbreaking way, I would say. So Catalina, my darling, this is my girl right here. She is a vampire, and she is turned into one at 17 to, I'll say 17 years old. I'm going to stick with that number for now. And she is from a lineage of, let's say, a lot of religious and orderly structure, because in this line of life, I think she's born around the 1800s. I would say this is when a lot of industrialization, some form of industrialization comes into play, and her father and her family, they move around a lot due to the father's business. And with her becoming this, she actually never got to see her family again, unfortunately. But with that being said, I think there's a lot of depth to her character, because she's so loving and so bubbly, but she's gone through so much crap. And they meet due to the fact that Amalia actually saved her from a coven of vampires. And the fact is that Dolores did not even know she was in the midst of a coven of vampires. And I found that really, like, making the stories actually co-sign with one another and, like, cross paths, so that there's a reason of why they have an attachment to one another. So it was a night where Catalina was with this coven, and they were like a found family to her. So she gravitated to them due to the fact she was actually very emotionally neglected as a child, although she had two older sisters. And I found it very needed to have Amalia be that older sister, younger sister dynamic, because I realized with characters, when you give them a problem, then resolution, I wanted her to have a problem of where she is seeking out for something that she never had. It's like you aching and desperately wanting something to the point that you don't realize you're putting yourself in that danger. And once you are in that danger, you have no way of getting out of it. But then Amalia comes into her life and saves her from all of this. But sadly, Dolores got turned into a vampire, and Amalia was left with two choices: either to let the change happen, or out of mercy, let her die. And out of not only care, I would say is actually a reflection of herself. She saw herself from when she was younger to now, and I think she took advantage of the fact that I feel like Amalia's character was also lonely at the time of when they met. So she let the change happen. She could have stopped it. But out of selfish reason, I would say, because I want to see that's when the whole contradiction of the sum over the many, she lets the change happen because she was lonely. And I think that really gravitates to the fact that both characters can be such a walking contradiction. And I feel like human beings are kind of like that. And we have the ability to tell someone, oh, that's wrong to do that. But then we also be the same ones to rationalize our own behaviors. I think that's one thing of being human, but let's take that with a delicacy and a grain of salt. But yeah, I think her character is somewhat a stableness to Amalia. She creates a form of emotional stability. She's also I realized a person that was emotionally neglected, she has the ability to observe other people. I would never want to call her an empath, because I think that really takes away the emotional awareness that she has. I would say she's highly emotionally aware due to the fact she observes other people so much, due to the fact that she feels invisible all the time. But that created such a comfort between the two characters, in that she gave herself and allowed herself within that dynamic to be very loving towards Amalia, and she saw her as an older sister at the end of the day, a caretaker, a person that could defend her. Although she has the capability now as a vampire to defend herself, she still relies on the agency of Amalia. So I am glad I created that, because I also have sisters myself, and I wanted to show that representation of love and sisterhood. So yeah, I really hope you guys like so far what I'm doing with these characters. I love my characters very much, and I see you guys for the next one.